Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today is going to be a little bit different. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to Asobo and Microsoft for creating an awesome simulator with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now, in this flight we are going to fly only with default stuff, so it's going to be no add-ons, no nothing the likes. It's going to be the standard Cirrus SR22T from Sim Update 14, together with Sagoya Airport from the World Updates, going to Klagenfurt, also from the World Update. All default weather, default terrain, well, default airports, at least they're available free of charge for the sim from Microsoft directly, and the same goes for the airplane. So this video really goes out to show how awesome of a simulator Microsoft Flight Simulator has really become. It's very easy to constantly complain about all the stuff that is not working and all the stuff that would need enhancement. It's even easier to complain about incomplete add-ons out there, but how often have we actually done a video just appreciating everything that Asobo and Microsoft have given us? So I'm using the default camera over here to move around. This is the drone camera with the speed slightly reduced a little bit. The airport, as mentioned, is default as well, and since it is default, let's have a quick look into the hangar, where we've got a lot of other aircraft standing, which are default aircraft as well. So just take a moment to appreciate those with the VL3 over here, or with the Piper Cups and all the lovely stuff over here. So this really isn't much different from walking into a hangar at a real airport and just taking a look inside, taking a couple of pictures and photos, and then just walking out to your airplane and go flying. So really amazing how close to the real world Microsoft Flight Simulator has really gotten. So let's step into our SR22. I'm not gonna explain any procedures or anything the likes, just gonna go over the checklists here. So before engine start checklist, pre-flight inspection complete and weight and balance and limits, emergency equipment on board, passengers breathe, seatbelts and harnesses secure. So external power is not available, brakes hold, battery master switch is coming on. Also, let's turn that light off, don't think we're gonna need that today. And then let's turn on the strobe light, mixture full rich. We're gonna prime for 2 seconds over here. That's 21, 22. Okay, open the power lever slightly. Fuel pump on, prop area is clear, and then let's go ahead and start up our engine. Okay, engine running, prop idle. Let's lean a little bit here. Here we go. Alright, looking good. So, oil pressure is checked, then we can turn on the rest of our switches. Like that. And that's our G1000 starting up. Worth at this point just to point out how far the G1000 has actually come. Like, remember the default version of the avionics back in the day when the simulator was first released? Now just compare that with what is available in the simulator now. Like, we've got an awesome autopilot here in the working title unit that Microsoft have paid for. We've got an awesome airplane, and well, we've got awesome avionic capabilities now, closely mimicking the real-world units. So that's something we really don't say or see like all the time, is it? Alright, cool. Then let's go into creating our flight plan again. That's also all new stuff. So Lima, Juliet, Zulu, Alpha, Sagoria. I do hope I pronounce it correctly, by the way. If I don't, then feel free to point it out. And then our destination is going to be Lima, Oscar, Whiskey, Kilo. Like so, Klagenfurt, enter, okay. And that's it, that's our flight plan in. So really awesome what this thing is capable of doing now, and especially remembering it's all just default. Okay, so let's tune those comms, 21.5 going in com 2. Alright, so before taxi checklist, flaps up, radius avionics set, cabin heat and defrost set, fuel selector, switch tank, And that's the before taxiing checklist complete. So, taxi checklist, park and brake brakes, HSI, attitude, and turn coordinator will be checked. Alright. So, looking good on the left side. Looks like we'll be turning out to the right for our runway, and looking good on the right side. Brakes off, and let's try not to run over this gentleman over here. So, as much as I appreciate the sim, we also gotta take that little buck here into account. Sorry. Okay then, clear on the left, clear on the right. Line up and backtrack. Going to take the full runway length as it is available over here, and just appreciate how cool this actually looks, doesn't it? I mean, look at that grass. It's there since the very first version of the sim, but how often have we actually taken the time to appreciate that it is actually there? Because it is looking quite cool, isn't it? Alright, so that stuff is set up. Let's go over to the GPS mode, quickly run the checklist. Okay, so let's see. Door latched, caps handle. Pin is removed, seatbelt, shoulder harness is secure, air conditioner off, fuel quantity confirmed, fuel selector, fullest tank, fuel pump. Set to boost, mixture full rich, flaps 50% and check. Oh, is that grass coming through my plane there? Lovely. Okay, so that's the flaps on 50%. Transponder, we're going to stay on VFR and on alt. Okay, autopilot checked, navigation radio set, cabin heat defrost as required, brakes hold. Power lever 1700. So give me that brake, here it is. Okay, 1700. Next up we're gonna check the alternator and all those things. So, engine display, alternator, showing 15, then nav lights, land lights, and pitot heat. Okay, all that stuff is working. So back to the checklist. Voltage is checked, pitot heat on, nav lights will stay on, landing lights as well. Magnetos, check left, right. So let's do that over here. Lost about 40, both. Again, lost about 40, both. Looking good. Power lever down to 1000 RPMs, that looks good. Flight control track, I'll do a real quick one over here, and that's looking good. Trims, set for takeoff, autopilot, disconnected, and we don't need de-ice immediately after takeoff, so with that we are good to go. Alright, so let's take off and take a moment just to appreciate the lovely scenery we've got available in Microsoft Flight Simulator over here. Are you ready to go? Take off. Power set. Rotate. Yep, that was close, but we managed to get out. Look at that scenery. Okay, so passing 90 knots. Flaps going up. Gonna keep the power, and then we'll make our way through the valleys at first, and we'll go on top later. Just look at how beautiful all of that really is. Also look at the weather, looking quite cool as it lies just on top of the hills over there, with a couple of clouds, but not too many. Okay then, we'll make that right-hand turn. Everything's clear just over there. I have a feeling the clouds might be touching the ground just in front of there, so let's use our chance while it lasts, and we'll just climb on top of the clouds over here, and then we'll continue on top. But look at that lovely look of the clouds hanging in the valley over there. And then you've got a couple of those mountains sticking out. That's just really, really beautiful, isn't it? Hello there. Just gotta appreciate this, right? It's beautiful graphics, and for what it's worth, it's also running at a great frame rate. Now, coming from previous simulators, from Prepared especially, when I saw the first couple of previews of Microsoft Flight Simulator, I was really like, is that thing gonna run at a decent frame rate? Especially taking into account that previous versions of the sim, like FSX or Prepared, were usually limited out by the CPU and had some real troubles keeping up. And then I saw the first couple of Microsoft Flight Simulator previews. I was like, oh boy, we are certainly going to continue in that direction. But it didn't take long to realize that once I had installed the first beta preview back in the day, like, hey, this thing is running pretty well. And yeah, that's indeed what it did. So it was just so cool to have that simulator running in the first couple of days. Now, ever since then, it became quite easy to lose the appreciation for everything that Microsoft Flight Simulator offers. Like, we come to see mostly the bugs rather than all the features that it has, and I do feel this video is very due and very just to just correct that and have a look at what kind of a beauty that sim actually is. Now, let's go ahead, level off at 6,000. We've been hand flying it all the time, and hand flying is a very good point, by the way. Lots of people are complaining that the manual flight model in Microsoft Flight Simulator would be subpar, and while I agree that there is certain things that could definitely see improvement, we still got to say that with everything they have done and everything that the simulator is by now, we still got a superb sim. Like, you can certainly hand fly this one. It's got its issues, no question, but you can hand fly it, and all the little things, like just look at the little bit of turbulence that we experience right now, with a light wind from the left, and that wind going over all those hills. You can see the nose slightly going left and right, and that's what it would do in real life. That's really just what it would do in real life. So, pretty cool to actually have all of that stuff working. Okay then, autopilot is coming on. Then let's just go alt hold, and we'll also put it onto heading. Here we go. So, just as we fly over that hill over there, let's just have a look out to see the huge amount of trees we've got over here. In previous simulators, that would have been simply impossible. Like, the performance would have been completely down the drain. And in Microsoft Flight Simulator, yeah, you do need some sort of a stronger hardware, but look at it that way. It's running really smooth over here, and that's really all we can ask for. Also have a look at the detail of the clouds going through the valleys down here as we are flying on top, and just look at those mountains sticking out of the clouds. That's just really, really cool down there. I really like it, I gotta say. Okay then, let's make sure we don't actually fly into those mountains. Go a little bit higher, like come on, altitude selector. Let's start at 8,000, see what we're gonna get. Level change, pull that speed out. Down to 130 maybe. Just look at how that looks. That's really beautiful, isn't it? We're gonna go a little higher. Give me 9.5. Okay. So, what's also really worth mentioning here is we looked a lot at VFR stuff right now, but let's also quickly talk about some of the IFR stuff you can do in that sim. And this is where it now becomes relevant for real-world aviation. Obviously, Microsoft Flight Simulator is not licensed as any sort of a training tool, but nonetheless it is worth mentioning that the G1000, and I assume the other avionics as well, for sure I can say about the Boeing aircraft, they now came close enough that you can at least do basic familiarization on your private home computer with it. Thinking back to the days of FSX and earlier simulators, the default avionics were really so bugged that you couldn't do anything proper with them without a lot of a negative training effect. Now that is completely gone now with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Like, you've got all the important stuff in here that you may probably want to use for your typical day-to-day flight, and also the features of the G1000, the features of the Boeing computers. They cover the basic stuff. Now, you will never be able to actually learn how to fly a real airplane on your sim, but what you will be able to do is to get a situational awareness level going by knowing how everything interacts with one another, and by getting that feedback, that it will be much easier to learn in the real world. When you're sitting there with an instructor, you'll have free mental capacity to focus on other things. Also, you can easily learn how to interact with your avionics. If you've got a G1000 in your training airplane, and if you're familiar with this one, you will be able to operate that G1000 just perfectly when you sit into the real plane, freeing up your capacity for a lot of other stuff that becomes important when you are flying your IFR flight, or when you're learning to fly in general. So even though it's not licensed for any sort of real-world training, and even though it obviously has its trouble in terms of things that will certainly need ironing out by your instructor, even with all of that in place, we still gotta say that the simulator is able to provide you with a great deal of help becoming an actual pilot. It will obviously not and never will be able to replace real-world training, but it is definitely a great substitute for it. Alright, so we talked so much about IFR, so how about we just go IFR for a moment here and load up an approach. So let's just get out of that engine page. So procedure, load approach, and we'll go for an ILS approach onto runway 28 right from Kilo Foxtrot Tango, like that. Okay, so that is all looking good. The only thing that we cannot get in the default sim here yet is the minimums. Now, I do suppose they never bothered to add actual aviation charts, for the simple matter that anybody who's interested probably got the Navigraph charts already. But just look at the features that, apart from the charts, we still have available down here in our sim. Okay, so let's go nav mode. We'll start following the GPS towards the Klagenfurt VOR, as we've got an overcast and 1,100 feet down there at the moment. We'll just follow along, and you can see our frequency has been tuned automatically, 110.1. Final approach course 281 will also be tuned automatically. So with all of that done, let's start our descent, and we are going to make our way IFR in. So, set that altitude down. No, not to -1,000. Something like 4,000 for the beginning of the approach. Still takes a while to stroll all of that stuff in. Okay, here we go. Vertical speed, and we'll take -1,700. Alright, down we go. So the only point where I still have to cheat to make that IFR procedure here realistic is getting that minimum, and well, we just gotta have some charts for that, which unfortunately the sim doesn't have right now. But apart from the charts, I tend to say the sim is really, really close to the real world there. So minimum is going to be 1650. So let's bring that one in down here. Barrow. And then we can start strolling. Obviously that is going to take a little time, so let's just expedite that. Okay, here we go, 1650 is in. Very cool. So, that's in. We can start our, or we are already in our descent. Just let the speed pick up a little bit, and look at that. Lovely little hole in the clouds there so that we don't even need the anti-ice system, but the airport itself is probably still covered with clouds over there, so our choice to go for an IFR arrival definitely isn't the worst. A little terrain over there. Talking about terrain, by the way, have you ever taken the time to appreciate how well the synthetic vision on the primary flight display actually works? Now, just want to point that out. These kind of features back 5 years back were the reason an add-on would cost like 50 or 60 bucks. Nowadays, they're included by default, which is really cool. Right, little bits of snow every here and there. And we've left all the mountains behind. So now it's going to be just a couple of hills in front of us over here. And again, just take another moment to look at the villages down there. Like, every house is in the position where it's supposed to be. Looking at the sat image, I can't seem to find a single house that would be missing down there. So, isn't that cool? Again, not so long ago, like 5 years ago, we would have paid a big buck just in order to get stuff like that as a third-party payware, where for all of Germany you would have to pay 200 euros back in the day. Okay, that's our ILS coming active. We got localizer capture, then we can press the approach button, glide slope capture, then our missed approach altitude is going to be 8,000, so let's quickly dial that in as well. So that's our missed approach altitude set, runways in sight on our 12 o'clock. We'll keep the speed up high for now, match that heading bug, and like that we can easily fly our approach. Okay, so I do suppose we've had our fun with the autopilot. Let's get rid of it again. Here we go. Also quickly going to use the chance to switch the fuel tank, like that. And that's it. Now we can take over manually again. Alright then, time to start reducing the speed. Let's pull the power off. So one point where I'd still like my simulator to get a little bit improved is when it comes to small inputs on the controls, like in the trimming. So when trimming, it always looks like the nose is pumping a little bit, like going a little bit up and down and up and down. In the real world, you can do these things a lot smoother, and that is indeed something I would like to see in the simulator a little bit more. But I'm sure that's something that they can start to get to work on. Okay then, let's go, flaps 50. And then we are on final now. Now again, just take a moment to appreciate the look down on the terrain that passes by us. Like, look at all the houses being in the positions where they're supposed to be. Look at all the forests being exactly where they're supposed to be. So that's just a really, really good job that Microsoft and Asobo have done over here in getting our simulator to this level where it is right now. And remember, everything we're seeing over here is default. Like back in the day, in order to get your previous simulator to look like this, we would have to invest so much money, like $100 to get the photorealistic Austria, probably another couple of bucks to get the photorealistic Slovenia. Then the airplane would have cost 50 euros. Then the weather engine, another 50 euros. And like that, just to recreate what we are doing in the base game over here, with no additional add-ons, you would easily have to pay some 100 or 250 bucks or so. So that's something to really appreciate for us, as this is now all possible in the default game. Now look at that, the yaw damper automatically disconnecting at about the correct elevation. It's also another thing. It shows us how much system depth there is. Right, now let's go to the landing. Power idle. Flare, flare, flare. And here we are. Alright then, we'll just let it roll to the end. Yeah, it looks a bit strange right now with the sim going a little bit left and right all the time. That's certainly something they could fix. So, the sim isn't perfect, but I do believe it's fair to say that for a base game, without any add-ons that we're seeing in action right now, this is a really, really awesome flight simulator. And even with the add-ons available, it's just becoming more of such. So we'll just let it roll towards the end now, and then we'll vacate the runway onto the main apron. Okay, that looks like about an exit we might want to take. Might have been a little fast, I do admit that. But here we are. Okay, stop that timer. We'll vacate the runway. Then let's read another couple of checklists. Sure enough, should have done that in flight as well, but it's still a simulator. So, checklists, menu, then let's go down a little bit. After landing, so power lever for 1000 RPMs, fuel pumps, can absolutely set that off right now. Mixture lean to obtain maximum idle RPM, maybe somewhere around the M or so. Let's see that, here we go. So that's looking good, then our flaps can come up, like that. Transponder, set it to on, not to standby. Lights as required, so let's turn that landing light off. Pitot heat switch off. Ice protection system switch off, backup pump switch off, ice inspection light off, and that's the after landing checklist completed. So that was just a very quick flight over here, going from one default airport to another. Default in this relation, obviously meaning that it is a combination of the free stuff Microsoft made available for us, together with things like the en route scenery, things like the weather scenario, and all that lovely stuff. So overall, really just gotta say that they've done a very, very good job with this simulator. And with FS24 now around the corner, I am really looking forward to what else they are going to provide for us. And I can only say that the more I'm thinking about what they're going to do in the new stuff for the new sim, the more excited I get for it. Okay, cool. So let's find that parking brake. Here it is. Then let's talk about that checklist again. So fuel pump if used off, that's off now. throttle to idle, that's where it is. Ignition switch, cycle. So we just do that in order to determine if there's any fault in the systems that might need fixing before the next flight. Okay then, mixture, cut off, all switches off, magnetos off, ELT, transmit light out, and that's gonna be it. Right, so that's all switches off, then the magneto is going off as well, and the ELT transmit light doesn't seem to be simulated. Alright, that's it guys. That is our look at Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Really looking forward to what 2024 is going to offer, but suffice to say that for an experience like this, like what the default sim offers now, we would have to pay several hundreds of bucks a couple of years ago, and it would by far not have looked as good as it does on this simulator. So with all the complaints and all the improvement suggestions in all my other videos, I just thought it would be totally just to do a video like that, just to appreciate what our simulator even offers, even in a default version. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this one, and I do hope that you can also take a little moment just to appreciate how much Microsoft are actually giving us with the default game these days. Thank you very much everyone, do hope you liked it. If you did, do let me know in the comments below, and I'm really looking forward to see you all on the next one. Once again, flying Patron aircraft and testing out what we've got available from third parties. If you did like the video, do let me know about it by clicking that like button and by writing a comment of what you like the most about Microsoft Flight Simulator. And finally, if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and if you really love what I'm doing on the channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But until then, I'd like to say thank you very much, and see you all again on the next one.